I get where you're coming from. Hello, Daniel, and hello, Vocab folks listeners. It is so exciting to be back on the show. Yeah, I think I was in Rome, Italy last time, and I am back in Split, Croatia now. I am an American podcaster, podcast editor, and basically obsessed with podcasts, languages, culture, and everything that comes with that. Okay, so today Daniel has given me a very interesting thing to talk about. It's I get where you're coming from. I get where you're coming from. Okay, I'll let you know what all of those mean in just a second. I get where you're coming from. So I was really digging into this and going over some context in my head because, language really is nothing without context.
No, I understand where you're coming from.
And I kept thinking this is part of an argument. There's a difference of opinion happening. Two people are arguing, but not like angry arguing. There are no fists being thrown, but there are people who are definitely disagreeing, and both people really believe what they're saying and their point of view, but they also really respect the person they're talking to. So they don't want to leave the argument as enemies. So they're trying to preserve the friendship or at least the acquaintance. So they're trying to be delicate in their disagreement. And they're also trying to persuade the person to believe what they believe. So there's a lot happening with this very casual, I get where you're coming from. And that's the thing. By being so casual, it's also trying to make that personal connection so that they keep that person in their corner, so to speak. So they keep that person kind to them, so they don't alienate them by having this argument. They have to disagree, but they want to do it in a delicate way that doesn't push the person away. So I get where you're coming from. So because it is a casual phrase that does all of these things I mentioned, it's usually said pretty fast. So let me see if I can just finish a few sentences here without stopping or without saying it slow so you can hear every word. So I'm just going to say this kind of naturally. I get where you're coming from, but I don't agree with you at all. Another one. I get where you're coming from, but that's totally wrong. Or, I get where you're coming from, but did you ever consider blah, blah, blah? And every time I did this in my head, I kept coming up with the word but after the phrase. So I get where you're coming from, but, and then you tell them why they're wrong. In a gentle, I still respect you, but I need to persuade you to see it my way because I'm right kind of way. So it's usually a but. So when you say, I get where you're coming from, it's very quick and together. And then you go, but. So you kind of pause at the but because you want them to know that the really important stuff that they need to agree with you on, it's coming next. So I get where you're coming from is sort of the buffer. It's sort of the sweet thing that's coming before the logic punch. I know I'm saying this is not a confrontational, like arguing in that way kind of thing, but it is a punch that's coming because you're going to hit them with this verbal and logical thing that you think they should totally take on as their own. One more time. Let's do two more, actually. Let's do two more. So I get where you're coming from, but did you see the way that he looked at her? Ooh, that one's got a romantic context, doesn't it? Ooh, let's see what else comes up. I get where you're coming from, but I think you should spend more time on that. So do you see what happens? It's very quick in the beginning because we're just getting them ready for the real information. Then we go, but, and then we go slightly slower pace because we really want them to absorb the logic that they should have. We want them to change their minds. And to do that, we're going to be subtle, nice, but clear. And so we're paving the way for them to be on our logic train. That's probably another episode in and of itself, Daniel. Logic train. Anyway, I hope that makes sense, and I hope my examples have piqued your curiosity. So next time you want to have an argument with someone, but you want to keep them as a friend or acquaintance or keep them on your good side, try using I get where you're coming from as the bridge to convincing them that ultimately, you're right. Again, this has been Steph Fuccio from GEOPATS Podcast. And you can find my podcast, GEOPATS, which covers like books, language, podcasting, and all kinds of different cultural niches in different countries around the world, anywhere that you're listening to podcasts. Thanks, Daniel, for this opportunity. It's always fun to do these language moments and dig into a language that I take far too for granted. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I dig where you're coming from. Good.